Okay, I think you should be good.
Okay. Welcome to Planning and Zoning. It is March 24th. This is a special meeting. We'll start with Planning and Zoning roll call at 6:04 p.m. Sarah Burak.
Amanda Podmore.
Marcia Hagenfeld.
Melissa Eggy.
Ed Dobson.
Thank you. Luann, do you want to roll call as town council?
Yes, Luann Hook.
Thank you, guys. And we're going to do it a little bit different just to try to focus on these updates. We're going to move right into old business. So, Amanda, have you heard anything from Chris McEnany?
I have not. So let me follow up with him, and I will CC maybe Anne and Marcia on that.
Yeah, that would be good.
Because Marcia, you were kind of like a backup to talk to. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you, Amanda. And so I know, Melissa, you were working to catch up, but one of the things that we wanted to kind of confirm is if we could make some of these changes without an additional public hearing. So can we remove kennels from C3? Can we change the uses for commercial when we didn't do that in the public hearing? We also, one of the things that Ann Lepinen kind of cautioned us about is that if we have to do another mailing, that might be cost prohibitive. So things for us to think about. I guess what I would suggest, and I guess I'm talking to Melissa at this point, because you are our editing guru, maybe we could make some of those questionable changes in green or a different color so that we know that like these are the ones we're waiting for legal counsel to get back to us on.
Excellent. I will make sure to use another kind of notation, another color or highlight or something. And let's be clear and explicit when we're talking about those points too, so that I'm reflecting that accurately. Thanks.
Thank you, Melissa. Thanks for doing those updates for us. Okay, thank you, Amanda, for reaching out. Sorry we don't have an answer to that question now, but let's kind of jump into our zoning edits. Now we'll try to share the document. I need to start sending myself the meeting packet. That would help a lot.
Do you want me to
Sarah?
drop anything in
Yes, please, Amanda. Or actually, I can pull it. I have the meeting packet here. I just need to start sending it to myself. That would make things easier.
Sarah, while you're looking, I would like to just say that Vaughn is on a Zoom meeting and I'm on a Zoom meeting. So I think my video is coming and going. As long as I can hear you and mute and unmute, I think I'll stay.
Perfect. Thank you, Marcia. And it's fine for you to turn your video off if that helps you with your bandwidth.
I did, but I keep sending you a thumbs up anyway because I'm so used to it. Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. I'd asked the commissioners to kind of come with their main revisions or reviews based on public comment. Would anyone like to jump in with some of their thoughts?
I have one.
Go ahead, Marcia.
One of the things that was brought up and that we've discussed and need to just make clear, I think, is the part about residential density, and that is 601130. So if you scroll down, it was brought to our attention, it's 601130. And it was brought to our attention, I think, primarily by Jennifer, but we certainly discussed it enough. And that was that Jennifer's point was if you have residential single family dwelling, you're restricting the idea of saying that more could be used on a piece of residential property. For example, a little duplex or a fourplex or whatever fits. And I personally do agree with that. But what I noticed was, and we'll get there in a second, 050, go up, no, the other way, yeah, okay. You're almost there. Oh, no, the other way. You were right.
Wait, I thought I passed it.
You did pass it. Yeah, keep going. 030, no, there's 040, almost there. And right there.
Okay.
So the, oops, not,
No,
Oh, I
it's
must-
page 17.
oh.
Page
right
15?
there.
17.
17? Okay.
It's
Thank you,
one-
Amanda.
Yeah, sorry, ladies, I'm reading backwards too, right
No, that's great.
there. Yeah.
Residence district. Here we go.
There we go. So here's where we are. And I believe that what we're stuck on here is the one dwelling plus ADU, et cetera, et cetera. And what is that dwelling? And is it single family dwelling? So that's where I think we need to be clear, because now we've seen it here and we're questioning it later in the discussion under the commercial part where we got stuck with the Friends of Cedar Mesa description and we got stuck on single family versus red. So I believe that the answer is we need to use the word residential, one residential dwelling, because up above in definitions, we have a new definition of residential dwelling, and it doesn't say single family. So it is my opinion that if we use the correct wording of residential dwelling throughout our ordinance, where we are open to having more than just a single family, then we'll be representing that we like other ideas besides single.
Thank you, Marcia. I understand your reasoning. Thoughts from other commissioners? Go ahead, Amanda.
Thanks, Marcia. I like all the thought you put into that and how that addresses other issues in the ordinance. I could get behind that change. I thought the feedback we received on this was really eye-opening, considering how often, as a commission, we talk about the importance of housing options for people that want to live in Bluff, and how there is not actually a lot of land available for housing to be developed for people that want to live here and work here. So I thought the comment about how septic already limits the density on our residential acres was a sufficient, essentially being sufficient, and we should remove this. My preference would be to remove this addition that we have suggested and not have a density restraint on residential, because septic will be that restraint.
Thank you, Amanda. Melissa or Ed?
I agree with the comments made here, and just want to caution that I agree with septic being a limiting factor. However, I just want to caution that the entities that approve septic are then kind of responsible for making sure that that works within the lot where the proposed structures would be built or whatever sitting. So I think if we trust that process, that septic would be authorized in a way that was working with the lot size, but also with like the numbers, then I think this makes sense. I'm not saying we shouldn't trust the system or in the process. I'm just saying we then put that in the hands of another entity. And as long as we feel like that works and will continue to work, then awesome.
Thanks, Melissa.
Sarah,
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Ed, did you have any thoughts?
Good discussion, and I'm following what Melissa said. I think the same way.
Thank you, Ed. Marcia?
So if we take out what we've been trying to get in there in some way, we're back to the discussion that started all this, and that is if someone comes and says, I can fit 4 buildings on my lot because I've got good side yard or whatever, we don't have an argument with that. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. and I agree with Melissa that that the septic would do that, because the septic would say, look, the way it's laid out, you can only put 3. I'm just worried that I understand both sides of the argument. I'll let you guys keep talking while I think.
Thank you, Marcia. Yes, it takes us back to like, if you have 4 acres, can you put 8 dwellings on your 4 acres? Which maybe that's fine. And that's how we want to leave it. So.
Sarah, I'd love to hear your opinion.
So I am worried about, I do worry about inaccessibility to housing. So I don't want to do anything that limits people from being able to find housing in Bluff. I also don't and I actually don't have a problem with a compound. Like if you wanted to build a compound with your 8 dwellings on your 4 lots. My only, like, I feel like I don't know how to put it in the ordinance, but I want to caution people, if they were to make a compound, that subdivision issues like would probably prohibit them from selling 8 individual homes. Like it'll be forever a compound. So I see that being potentially an issue in the future when you have like, how do you like liquidate your compound if you need to? But we haven't had any proposals for a compound, so maybe that's just being too concerned.
It's not our problem. It's the problem of the developer. If he says, oh, I built 8 houses, but now I'd like to sell them separately, we'll go, sorry, it doesn't pass the test. So to subdivide.
I would feel comfortable keeping it with the septic being a limiting factor. And then of course, as Melissa said, we trusting that septics are being properly inspected, but then also that we continue to require that confirmation before any kind of land use approval.
Oh, can I expand on that thought, Sarah? Then should we just say minimum lot area shall be 1/2 acre, development limited to meeting all setback, wastewater, and other code requirements? Or do we even need that?
I would say we probably don't even need that, because those are all the requirements you have to meet anyway. So it sounds like we're kind of coming to a consensus on just deleting this. Is everyone comfortable with that?
Yes, our recommendation would be that we not add what we thought we should add.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Am I highlighting the correct piece then to delete that entire suggestion? Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Melissa. One of the others, because I know that kennels and uses for commercial is going to be a little bit longer talk, but one of the others that I wanted to just briefly pull up, because we had at least 2 comments, was the change in setbacks. And the comments really being about whether or not that allows enough room for things like a bike path or a walking path. And I felt that one comment in particular that basically asked not to make that change until they've done the review process might be worth considering as a good suggestion. So, go ahead, Marcia.
Sarah, was that the review process of the proposed walking trail plan? Is that what we're saying? Okay.
Yes, thank you, Marcia, for that clarification. Any thoughts on that, on setbacks? I can try to, and this is specifically setbacks in commercial zones.
This is Amanda. I guess I remain unchanged on my opinion that our commercial setbacks are too stringent right now. So I would like to change them. I think we were so thoughtful about where we wanted to put commercial in the town and limiting that I don't want to further limit it by setbacks, but I understand what you're saying, Sarah.
Thank you, Amanda. Any other thoughts from commissioners?
Sarah, this is Marcia, and I agree with Amanda that I'd like to see us move along or move forward to changing it. And I understand that there's a proposal of something going forward for the walking area, but I think it fits within the distances. One of the hesitations I have is we look how long this process has taken us, and how if we stop and go, oh, we'll wait for this and oh, we'll wait for that, we've got to start this long process over again. And I realize we always will, and we should, because things should be, growing and fluid. But I hate to get hung up on, we did all this work and didn't get anything done.
I understand. Thank you, Marcia. Melissa or Ed, any additional thoughts?
Just one that's coming to mind related to the timing, and I agree with what's been said also. If we're still waiting for some information from our lawyer about a couple changes that we want to make, this also knowing that this setbacks issue may be best addressed after the process for the walking paths or the biking paths or whatever those are. Maybe that also takes time. I agree that it's going to take time to get all the things done, but if we're still waiting for information from the lawyer, I'm not saying that the two will coincide in time, but I guess I'm kind of on the fence about deciding. I'll just pause there. I think there's a couple timing issues there, and I think there's a consideration there for the process that's already happening. At the same time, how much more time do we have to work on this, and how many more dollar bills is it going to cost to do another hearing at another round of this, and is it worth it? And I think, like has been said, it has been very thoughtful, and what immediate need that we need to address. And are we able to just pause on any of that? I guess I'll leave that sort of rhetorically open.
Thanks, Melissa. I would be comfortable. I wanted to bring it to the attention of the council because I thought it was some good comments. I would be comfortable leaving it as a 30 feet suggestion and recommending it to town council, and then town council can of course debate it and make their decision.
Actually, that's a good point, Sarah, because they have more information on the walking path, and they've been looking at it more closely than we have. So it's possible if we say 30, they'll say, wait, the path is 35, or whatever. So that's a good idea.
Amen.
Okay. So, well, and Melissa, I appreciate what you're saying as well, but I kind of feel like, yes, let's go ahead and make the recommendation, and then it can at least have discussion on town council's end. Any other comments or changes you guys wanted to talk about before we move on to kennels?
I have something.
Okay, go ahead, Ed.
I think I'm on page 9.
Okay, I'll try to get there.
And it's paragraph C, building permit required. I'm looking at the purple or magenta language, I guess it is. Building permit required for, and the second part of that, all interior or exterior reconstruction or remodeling, which includes structural integrity, electrical wiring, or mechanical plumbing. In other words, any one of those could kick off the requirement. And then if we look down to the next part where a building permit is not required, the part, the construction or addition of a porch or patio, unless it is enclosed by more than, let's see, the next part, remodeling that is decorative or not part of a change in structure. And those are separate things, decorative or. And so remodeling of an electrical problem may not be a change in structure. And so we've got a conflict there, I think.
I see what you're saying, Ed, where you're saying that if you're, so I guess my question there is, would San Juan County require you to get a building permit if you were to as you're saying, maybe you had bad wiring and you rewired your house? Are you required to get a building permit? Because if San Juan County doesn't require that, then we shouldn't require it. And I don't know the answer to that. I'm just posing the question.
Right, and if San Juan County has the same language that we're looking at, then the conflict is also there at San Juan County's level.
I don't believe they have the same language, Ed. I think what we did here is try and really be as specific as we could that said, if you're doing anything mechanical, I guess is the covered word, then you're going to need to, get a permit. So I'm not quite sure. I think doesn't a building requirement, no, don't you need a building permit for anything that needs a building inspector, meaning the electrical or the plumbing? It seems to me that's where we were coming from on this. So I agree with Ed that it might be hard to read what we wrote and we might need to fix the wording, but I think we meant if you need a permit, you need to get it for these.
Thank you, Marcia, and thank you, X. But I agree. I think the idea was to try to really outline for people what requires a building permit and what doesn't. But if you can think of ways that would make that clearer to the public, I'm happy to consider that. And Marcia, I assume that yes, if you were rewiring enough to need an inspection, you would need a permit. So like rewiring your light switch, maybe not. Rewiring your entire house, yes.
Right, and I'm not sure what the threshold is for that.
If we just referred to San Juan County's rules without trying to get specific, how would that deal with the problem?
Good question, Ed. I don't know how it reads, to be honest. Are you up for a little homework?
I'm looking while we talk. I'm going to look for 1 second.
Okay, we're gonna let Marcia see if she can dig that up. Go ahead, Melissa.
Yeah, just one thought. So I think if there's the part about requiring an inspection that's different than like the example, like I'm going to retrofit my exterior light to comply with the dark sky ordinance, let's say. That's different, I think. In our work with our land use clearance, and I understand that we're in the definition talking about building permits, so that's like the piece that follows the land use clearance. But we're talking land use clearance more about like, are you meeting setbacks and height requirements and other ordinances applicable to the town? If someone was rewiring their house or a structure, let's say, that existed, it wouldn't necessarily, theoretically, it wouldn't be changing any of that structure itself. And in that respect, perhaps it's an entirely different reason to even do work on the project. So I think it's back to the point about if the county or whoever required an inspection, do we need to account for that within our language? I think that's the issue.
It's a good point, Melissa. Like, for example, are you required to submit a land use clearance if you're rewiring your house?
That is a good point, that it has nothing to do with building if you're just wiring. So I don't know. I'm still looking for just 1 more minute, guys, while you're talking.
You're fine, Marcia. Ed, thank you for bringing this to our attention, because we definitely want it to be clear to people. But I'm going to kind of leave this as is, I think, for now, until maybe we get a little more clarification, because I think what we're trying to do is tell people when they need a building permit, because when they need a building permit, they also need a land use clearance. And I think we can maybe point to construction subject to inspection. So if you're rewiring your house and you need an inspection, then that should trigger a land use clearance. Maybe that kind of encompasses all of it for us. Because in all honesty, like we don't, as Melissa was saying, there's not a lot that our commission could do other than say, yes, please go rewire your house, because you're not changing any structural things. Amanda?
I guess I'm not quite addressing the land use clearance question, but I just looked at the Flagstaff city code, and it says, essentially says, like where one of the coaches is on ours for when a building permit is required, which includes structural integrity, electrical wiring, or mechanical plumbing. What we could add is that is regulated by San Juan County.
That could work too, Amanda.
I don't know if that
I can read you on the front of the San Juan County building permit. It says, building permits are required for all new construction, comma, before moving a trailer or pre-built home onto a lot, and for any addition or remodeling.
So it
So there-
doesn't by electrical.
So they're saying if you do any of this stuff, you build or you move a house, you need to, or you remodel.
So they don't have the which segment?
They don't specify electrical or plumbing or anything like that.
Well, maybe we should take that out of ours then and just leave theirs as the control.
Sarah, can you lower it just a little bit so we can see the whole paragraph and pick out what's there? Okay. Building permit shall be obtained. Town of Bluff permit process prior to all construction shall be performed in compliance with. It's required for all new construction of any structure, all interior, exterior remodeling, installation of permanently affixed prefabricated dwellings or capital dwellings. So yeah, I'm sorry. Just like Ed said, maybe just take out our little structural integrity wiring stuff.
The which phrase?
Well, according to, if you're using San Juan County as control, they say all remodeling. So if we wanted to keep San Juan County as a control, we would just remove the part we would just put it in building permit is required for remodeling and leave it as is.
Actually, that's correct, Sarah. We can just, yeah.
I'm good with that.
And that would actually, maybe we remove, just add to the bottom construction subject to inspection, and then remodeling, just another line, remodeling. Or Melissa, that could work too. So all
Yeah, that's
exterior construction or remodeling, and just leave it.
Yeah.
And then I would guess we would delete remodeling that is decorative, because we're saying that no, all remodeling needs a building permit.
That's correct too. Yeah. And that's an interesting point. I wonder where that line comes in. It's like I just want to add a little shelf to the side of something, or so I don't know. It's interesting.
Okay. Do we feel comfortable with that?
Take a look at this. I think I just did 3 things. I'm reflecting all of the conversation. I want to make sure I've got it right.
Yes.
I think you got it, Melissa. Amanda, did you raise your hand?
Oh, I just was noting that we don't have the definition of remodel in our definitions. So I was thinking about whether we should have that.
Maybe, well, once again, maybe we should just pull, how does San Juan County define remodel? We'll just pull it straight.
I'll look while you guys are talking.
Okay, thanks, Marcia. Go ahead, Amanda.
I think one thing we could do is some of the definitions of remodeling say that it's to undergo a structural change. And I think that helps us understand that if you're putting in a shelf, that's not a structural change. You don't need a building permit. So maybe we should add a remodel definition.
Fine with me.
That makes sense.
I've started that in the definitions, with just what the Amanda just said, but we can edit that when we get there.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Melissa.
Thanks, Melissa. Are you, just for,
Except we can't add it tonight, right? Because it's adding something we didn't put to public hearing.
Well, we could add it, but with that special, like color coding or something that Melissa was gonna do to indicate that it
Okay.
I've got it. Thanks for reminding me.
needs legal review or something.
yeah, thank you guys. Okay, so are we ready to tackle kennels? Because this is one of the things we got the most feedback on.
The only other thing I wanted to address before that was again, using a different color code to indicate that this change has not gone to public hearing, but the idea of changing in commercial zones what is allowed from single-family dwelling to residential dwelling.
Okay,
Yes.
Page, I actually highlighted it in yellow. It's like page 15 or so.
thank you, Amanda. Yes, so changing, thank you, Amanda. So changing single-family dwelling to just residential dwelling, which would allow for a duplex or an apartment.
Yes, yeah.
Amanda, could you read the definition of residential dwelling
Sure.
so that I don't lose this spot in the page?
Yes, our definition of residential dwelling is a non-motorized physical structure for housing people constructed on site or delivered and installed on a permanent foundation and connected to approved utilities.
So not specifying that single dwelling or,
Correct.
do we feel that if we changed it to a residential dwelling, that would accommodate things like a duplex or apartment building, or would those be separate uses?
I think it would accommodate that since it doesn't limit it to number of families.
I'm comfortable with that change. Other commissioners?
I like it.
Want me to do the suggested edit or? Not sure.
Yes, and then, yeah, Melissa's in there. Go ahead, Melissa.
And we're gonna use the term residential dwelling? Or what's the term then?
Residential, yeah.
I wonder if this would be, well, I mean, I guess the use, but I wonder if this would be considered something that's gone to public hearing, since the definition for residential dwelling was part of the public hearing.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I wonder if that would be considered reviewed.
Sarah, I also heard just in scuttlebutt the determination that no residential dwellings should be allowed in commercial. Not someone saying they didn't want to, but that you shouldn't allow things in commercial. I just feel like Bluff's commercial areas are surrounded and part of our residential neighborhoods because of how we're built. And so we have a little more flexibility. So I think this residential dwellings answers the need about how big or small how many people could live there. And it answers the fact that I think we should include residences in commercial.
I agree with you, Marcia. I would also say that I think that was kind of the intention in the beginning, because I don't think we necessarily meant single family dwelling, but we did recognize that there may need to be residences in commercial zones, and we do have some of those instances already. But I will say that it was also brought to my attention that in the international zoning code, they prohibit residential uses in commercial zones, which in a much larger place, a much larger city, makes some sense if you're thinking about like you'd have like a bustling commerce area. You might not want to have, you know, apartments and those kind of things, but that's not what Bluff is. So I think it fits.
And technically, it's already gone to public comment in our first round of zoning ordinance.
Yes. Yeah, we already allow residential use in commercial zones. Yeah. This is clarifying the type of dwelling.
Right, and then it takes effect for C1, C2, C3, which brings us to the discussion that started all this on someone asking us to put a duplex in a commercial site. So we'd be covered. Okay. But it still goes on the Chris McEnany question list.
Yes. But like I said, I wonder if it would be considered reviewed in the sense that residential dwelling was one of the definitions we submitted for public hearing. Just, I don't know if that counts or not. Melissa, Ed, any thoughts about this?
I like it.
Nothing.
Okay, thanks, Melissa. Thanks, Ed. Any other things that came up in public comment we'd like to address?
Woof, woof, it's time for kennels.
Okay, let's talk about kennels. Does somebody know where I guess they're
Well,
here. Somewhere here.
We discussed putting them in A2, and then which would mean A2 and A3, and then they already exist in C3, and that became a big issue. And then
Yes.
they are allowed we wanted to talk about putting them in the factory zone, which we don't have any factory zones designated. So we should probably start with agricultural and move down.
I agree. So with the idea that we put them in A2, kennels would be allowed in A2 and A3 districts. Thoughts from the commissioners on if we want to keep that?
I like it because I think that noise is an issue everywhere and anywhere. And I know that just as well as every neighbor who lives near a dog. But we have to make a plan that says somewhere you can have these. And part of what I argued last time was conditional use, where we could let someone put it in these places, but we'd have conditions attached. We do not have that capability in our code. Therefore, it is my thought that the agricultural districts could be safer than others to put a kennel. We have people telling us they're going to build noiseless kennels, but you never can count on that unless, of course, you tell them that. So I think we need to come up with something, and agriculture for me does that. The C3 district, I'm kind of willing to pull it from there, although we know we can't tonight, but that's where I kind of stand.
I feel the same as Marcia.
Thank you, Marcia. Thank you, Amanda.
I feel the same on agricultural, and pending the information from the lawyer, maybe I could be convinced on C3. Just being honest about that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Melissa.
My turn?
Go ahead, Ed.
Well, maybe not to say anything Republican here, but the elephant in the room is Leah's place. Underdog wants it. They can soundproof They can insulate for sound. When a dog is outside a building, it doesn't matter whether it's a house or another enclosed building. I don't think we should get in the way of that transaction.
Ed, I would caution us not to talk about specific real estate or other, you're saying Leah's Place, meaning it's the commercial district, and that is definitely part of our discussion. But I would be hesitant to discuss this as a matter of which lot we're talking about. I would just caution that.
Humpty Dumpty can't be put back together again.
Thanks, Ed, but I'm inferring from your comment that you would like to keep kennels in C3.
I'm happy with limiting kennel in C3 to a soundproof building.
We have no control over that.
Well,
noise ordinance would help with that.
Well, a noise ordinance would help. Go ahead, Amanda.
I think isn't Leah's zoned C2?
I don't know the answer off the top of my head. I would assume C3, but I don't know that. Luann says C3.
Amanda, are you checking the map?
Yeah.
Okay, I won't.
I think the property directly behind Leah is C2.
Hoyt's Place,
Yes.
Oh, okay. So
that's where we used to have kennel.
yeah, it is C3. Okay. Just sorry. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, we can't have kennel there at C2.
Yeah. Thank you, Ed. So I would agree that there needs to be space for kennels. I would keep kennels in agricultural zones. One, because we don't have a factory zone. So I feel like that's a kind of a bait and switch. I'd be like, yeah, you can have your kennel in the factory zone, but we don't have a factory zone. So I do think kennels need to be somewhere. I feel like we can't. I'm kind of with Melissa in the sense that maybe I could be convinced to take them out of C3. I would say that that's probably not something we can do without public hearing, just because it is more restrictive, right? I think it's okay to make a less restrictive change. I don't know if it's okay to make a more restrictive change.
I agree.
I'd be comfortable leaving it in C3.
Can we put it in the, could we put it in a highlighted, well, I'm not sure we need to. It is in fact the question that started us on a road to Chris McEnany. So, because we want to be able to discuss doing it. I guess it exists now. This would be a change we didn't know we were going to make. So it won't be discussed when, for example, the town council takes on this paperwork that we may or may not be ready to send tonight. The town council will not be discussing that because it's not part of our changes. And so it's just the question, it begs the question to Chris McEnany of whether we can in fact change it. So.
Melissa. Thanks, Marcia.
I appreciate what's being said here, and I think the discussion is really, really thoughtful and very necessary. Wondering if we submit kind of an idea or recommendation to town council alongside this document, something saying something along the lines of, please consider the implications of kennels in these places. Please consider, that can be in their wheelhouse to decide if there needs to be a separate ordinance or description or whatever to identify what's a kennel and what's a kennel in this zone and what's a kennel in that zone. Maybe we just provide that as our feedback indicates this needs more thought, and allow town council to take that to the next step. In the same way, short-term rentals have another extension past the work we've done. Perhaps in the same way, town council can decide. I'm just going to make it up. If you're going to have kennels in C3, there has to be a soundproof, and we're soundproofing in X, Y, and Z ways, just as an example.
I agree with you, Melissa, that it's a great idea to pass along a note saying, you know, this is where we're stuck and we're going to leave it there for you to discuss. I would say I'm a little worried about you can't change up what a kennel is. And what we talked about, and you're right, maybe Melissa, this could go in the note to them. What we talked about was if the town is going to issue a business license for kennels, that's where they could put some requirements. So you're right. That's cool. That's a good way to do that then.
Amanda. Thank you, Melissa. Go ahead, Amanda.
And they could do so without having to go through a zoning ordinance amendment process and the associated mailing costs. So
Yeah, good thinking. Because it does seem like that should be kind of like Marcia suggested, where it is a conditional or special use, a special permit is. So you're getting your business license and you're getting additional requirements to have a kennel if you're in C3.
And
Yeah.
and
Go ahead.
sorry, Sarah. And that might be an addendum to the question to Chris McEnany that says, when they put together the little business license, how restrictive are they allowed to be? Because it's just a business, you know. But that'll be up to the town, not us. So this is good. I like handing off the final decision.
I wonder too, if you could just put something in here like kennels or animal shelters with special permit or with permit from town council or something like. I wonder
No,
if
that's
just add.
that's conditional.
I know. We're not doing conditional use, but I say I would agree to send it to town council with some ways for them to maybe enforce it through a licensing process.
So
And
we are leaving. So we're adding to agricultural and leaving it C3 and writing a note. When you pass this stuff along, Sarah, you'll write them a note that says, by the way.
Yeah, here's some of our thoughts on kennels and C3.
Awesome.
Yes, because I don't think. Well, because I do think we have to have kennels somewhere. I think agricultural could be a good place for them. And I don't think that we have the power to remove it from C3 because we're making a more restrictive ordinance without public comment. And without Chris telling me otherwise, I'm going to proceed with that assumption.
would you like me to make a motion for this recommendation to town council, like for the kennels specifically?
Sure. Let's have a motion, Amanda.
I motion to send a recommendation to town council to address animal kennels via a separate ordinance and or licensing process.
I second that.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Amanda.
Can I just do a timeout? Can we vote on things like this in a work session?
No,
Yes, because this is a special meeting, not a work session.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. I don't want us to be in trouble. Thank you.
No, good catch. Yeah.
Good catch, Melissa. Thank you. Any other things we'd like to talk about or change? Marcia?
Wait, just finishing the kennel thought. Did we leave it in F1? What are we doing? I'm sorry.
Well, good question. I say leave it in F1. If and when there's a factory zone, you can have.
Like out towards the airport or something or whatever when we, okay. Thank
I'm
you.
getting nods from Melissa and Amanda, so I'm going to assume you guys are comfortable keeping it there.
I can't resist this. Are we going to have olfactory zones?
Thanks, Ed.
Are we gonna have what? What did he say?
I'll spell it.
Olfactory zones.
OLF. You can take it from there.
OLAF.
No, he's a guy.
Thanks. Thanks, Ed. Humor is always necessary in these meetings. Good work, guys. That leaves us with 7 minutes for any further discussion. Marcia.
Can I just ask about process? If we go ahead and we recommend this document this evening to be sent to town council, and Luann, you might be able to answer this. Do we understand that, do we know if town council is in fact ready to take this on in some timely fashion? Do we know what we're doing with that?
Yeah.
You can hear me, I guess.
Yes, Luann.
Okay. Yeah, we had it on a work session and we took it off because we didn't have your final recommendation. So it's ready to roll.
Thank you.
Thanks, Luann.
In that case, I would make a motion to present to town council the updated recommendations for updating the zoning ordinance as completed on what is tonight, 3/24/22 by planning and zoning.
I will second.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes unanimously. We will pass this on to town council for their review. Yay! Good work, guys. Good work. Amanda, I forget the process for this. We have a form, I feel like.
Yeah, I think it's my duty to send on the recommendations. So I essentially would write 2 recommendation forms with our 2 different motions this evening and pass along the recommendation forms, and with the zoning one, I would pass along the draft document and the spreadsheet with the public comments.
Perfect. Do you have time to do that, Amanda?
I think so.
Okay. If you need help with that, let me know. But thank you very much for passing that along to town council.
Did you put up fireworks behind you, Amanda? That is
I'm
so cool.
excited because we did something awesome.
Good job, Amanda.
Woohoo.
So I have on the agenda other, just in case there's anything else you guys want to talk about before we adjourn.
We have our next meeting already set. We put down all this stuff we were going to do.
Yep. So for those of you, oops, I don't have my calendar open, but yes, our next meeting, you got next week off, and then we'll meet. Oh, that's May. Just kidding. So we'll meet April 6th will be our next regular meeting, and we'll address things like goals and those other things we said on our agenda. Melissa.
Thanks. I just wanted to ask at the last meeting, thank you for allowing my excused absence. Were the meeting minutes at that meeting approved and then filed into the approved folder, or do I need to follow up with that at all?
I think Marcia did that for you.
Yay!
Oh, yes, that's right. The approved part that you usually do, I was changed draft to approved and put it in the folder because we didn't have any changes. So
Excellent.
Yeah, it took me a minute, but I got it.
Excellent. Thank you. Just wanted to make sure. Thank you for doing that in my stead.
Sure, no problem.
Anything else? Friends and esteemed colleagues?
Okay, Ed, it's your turn.
Move to adjourn.
Thanks, Ed.
I'll second it.
Great. All in favor of adjourning at 6:58, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion approved. We are adjourned at 6:58. Thank you guys for your hard work. Appreciate it.
Thank y'all.
Everybody. Thanks, Luann, thanks for running the meeting out of the community center, Luann.
You're welcome.
Yes.
I'm gonna end the stream.